Good day. Welcome to another edition of Ebimo Amungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. Before I continue, I urge you to please press the like button. And if you're new to my show, I also urge you to subscribe. Where will the Russians take this war to? Where will be the logical end of this war that they have waged on Ukraine? We hear a lot of things now. Novorossiya. When they say Novorossiya, that means that they want to include, apart from the 4 territories that they have already taken, they want to include Nikolaev, and they also want to include Odessa. At least that's the extent of Novorossiya that many people and many analysts call. But these days, we are beginning to hear them now say that they also want to increase the buffer zone. The buffer zone from whence the Ukrainians send in their very deadly drones into Russia. They are very deadly Flamingo missile into Russia. Sometimes even they haul in quite a large amount of storm shadows to the mix, and then they are sending ATACMS every now and then into Belgorod. So President Putin, when he was making his speech yesterday, when he was announcing the liberation of Konstantinovka, he said the more that Russia is attacked, the more they will expand. And then he called some oblasts: Dnipropetrosk, Khakiv, Sumy. Some people even reckon that he may even add one more around the Belarusian border. So I ask this question again. Where do you think the Russians will end this war? When you listen to analysts like Scott Ritter, analysts like Colonel McGregor, these are people very well versed in warfare, and some of them do know the Russians very well. Some have now beginning to suggest that the Russians may go all the way to Kiev. All the way to Kiev. Because these days we hear the rhetoric that the Russians are not dealing with a regime anymore in Kiev. They're dealing with a bunch of terrorists. That's how they see them. That's how they see Zelensky, and that's how they see his government and his administration, because Zelensky has become the focal point, the spear that the whole of Europe is using to prick and poke at the Russian bear. Zelensky has been very effective at it. He arrives into any gathering in Europe and the whole hall is electrified. All of them want to reach out into their purses and start to donate. He hasn't even started to make his speeches. By the time he makes his speeches, we start to hear about things like we're donating 9 billion, 10 billion. We will support the drone project. We will support the attacks on St. Petersburg. The attacks they are very, very willing, happy to support. And they are supporting. They are building drone manufacturing facilities in countries like Denmark. They are allowing drones to overfly countries like Estonia, Finland. And they are all falling over themselves to show their love, their support of the Ukrainian countries. President Zelensky is a leader or one of a kind. You can't take that away from him. But this is now the irritation of the Russians. So people like Colonel McGregor are now saying that the Russians may go all the way to Kiev. And who knows? They may extend it also to Lvov, Odessa, Nikolaev, Khakiv, Chernihiv. This war has made us to become geographers. We now know almost every oblast in Ukraine. Let me delve into this matter here now. One very important discussion started today. The Russians are inviting Zelensky to come to Moscow. Moscow is not anywhere near Berlin. Moscow is not Brussels. I don't think Zelensky will take this invitation, but they're inviting him. They're inviting him. Zelensky may visit Moscow to meet with Putin as soon as he's ready to make important decisions, according to Peskov. Peskov was asked about this meeting that Zelensky has been asking relentlessly for. Zelensky wants to meet with Putin because he says they need to talk mano a mano, man on man, man to man. They need to talk about how to resolve this war. And he's been calling for this war to end. He has been talking about the ceasefire. He has been talking about how they should hold and freeze this war according to on the lines that they are now. He even sent an emissary to talk to the Russians and tell them that they should not be fighting within the regions that are not outside the 4 regions, the 4 oblasts that the Russians have annexed and put into their own country. It's now constitutionally parts of Russia that are Luhansk, Donetsk, and Zaporizhia and Kherson. They just want the war to be within these confines. Well, it so turns out that the Russians rejected it. They want to continue the war because as long as they see it, the Ukrainians are stretched for manpower. They are really, really hobbled for manpower, and they will not be helping the Ukrainians, as Putin said. Well, this news was also carried by Kremlin, by Arab News. It says Kremlin, Zelensky can come to Moscow when he's ready to make important decision. Obviously, that important decision will be some form of a surrender. It will not be allowed to. Boris Johnson will not allow him. Kestama will not allow him. Mark Rutte, I definitely know that Kaja Kallas will not allow him. He will not be allowed to even dare suggest that he wants to make a surrender to the Russians. Anyway, the Russian armed forces, we heard yesterday was a very big day when President Putin announced announcement. Very big forum. He made the announcement about the capture of Konstantinovka. And then now we're getting more details about how the Ukrainians did all they could to try and keep Konstantinovka. Konstantinovka has fallen. This city, this very big fortified city has fallen, and the Russians now control it. We can see how pockmarked it is from many months of bombardment. It was fortified. For over 10 years, this city had been preparing for such a day when the Russians will come. It is part of the most fortified cities within that belt. There are 4 of them, and then we'll get to know why the Ukrainians have done all they can to hold it off. But like Putin said, they are now going to go on and take the remaining parts of the Donetsk region. This is what, to retain Konstantinovka, Ukraine amassed 15,000 troops, including its most combat-ready units equipped with Western weapons, Colonel General Sergei Roskoy said. He is the deputy commander-in-chief of the Russian armed forces. Despite this, they failed to hold the city against the Russian advance.
Parts of Ukrainian defense. It was one of the 4 fortress cities next to Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, and Drushkovka, which was the main defense line of the Ukrainian armed forces in Donbass. The Kiev regime set much store by this city. In 2025, it awarded the title of the hero city of Ukraine.
So they did all they could to try and hold that city. Let us get an understanding of why this city is so important to the Ukrainians. Let us get this. This is a report here now by RT, Rick Sanchez, formerly of CNN. He now works for RT, and this is what he said.
Remain in terms of Russia's ability to not just go beyond this area right here to gain control of Donetsk and essentially this area and those 4 cities, which are obviously important. But it's for this reason. The defense line of the Ukrainians is like right in here, right? So if and when they get these cities, as many believe is shortly about to happen, they then will be able to move all the way out to here because there's not much beyond that. That's why this move associated with the hitting of Kiev, so that they can't then make decisions to support this because they're too busy protecting their own eggs over there.
So we get to see now that it's a much more layered thinking by the Russians. Well, this man says that they are going to take all the other oblasts. He said the new security zone, our head of state spoke yesterday, will run through the territory of Sumy, Dnipropetrosk, and Khakiv. Simply put, they are going to take these 4 oblasts. Well, during the negotiations in April of 2022, the Istanbul negotiations, when the Ukrainians refused and spurned the proposals of the Russians, the lead negotiator for the Russians, Mendesky, told the Ukrainians that the next time we come to negotiate, we won't be talking about 4 oblasts anymore. We'll be talking about 8 oblasts. And it does seem now that the Russians have decided that they are going to keep those 8 oblasts. It says the lying black bastards drowning in the vomit of the house. I think he's very colorful with his language. That is all I can say. He said so much. And this is actually what he said here about all the lies that they have been trying to talk about them winning the war. It says, how else can they explain their own people the loss of 20% of their former territory? They've lost all of this. So they are actually saying that they are doing very well in the war. Even Maria Zakharova also said, while Zelensky spun lies, Russia liberated Konstantinovka. The liberation of the strategic stronghold of Konstantinovka by Russian forces is vital to further advances. And noting that the heavily fortified stronghold that the Ukrainian regime loves to brag about has fallen, she called Zelensky over his lies and fed a Western audience. Zelensky is winning this war as far as he's concerned. And this is some of the things the Ukrainians have to endure from the hands of the Russians. Units of the 20th Combined Arms Zapad have taken control of settlements in Khakiv, including Novorossiya. They have lost 3 more territories today. The territories keep falling one after the other, and it has a lot to do with the very fact that there are some particular weapon systems that the Russians have that makes an imbalance for the Ukrainians, and that is the FAB bombs. And then these new suites of drones, somehow their drones have become more effective. No thanks to the Rubicon group and all the drone groups that are in that region there now. They have become very, very deadly and very effective, and they have done something in countering. There was a time when the Russians were very effective, and it had something to do with Starlink. Well, now they have their own Starlink after they were cut off of the Starlink, and they now have their own form of Starlink, and it seems like they are beginning to deploy it into the battlefield. Here again, we see another, here's how the BM-21 Grad crew from the Vodolsk battleground just wiped out Ukrainian stronghold, bunkers and all. So we see how they are using the multi-launch rocket launchers, and the Ukrainians have no... So this is the advantage the Russians have. They have this advantage, and they are pressing on with this advantage. Continuous bombing with another one. It's almost like an unfair fight. It just isn't a fair one at all. We see more and more of this. The devastation is just unrelenting. The devastation is continuing, and the good thing about this war is that it is a very visual war. We also know now that they are attacking all of their logistics. This is a train that has a Russian drone struck a locomotive somewhere in the Dnipropetrovsk. The locomotive is by the means by which they do their distribute their military hardware around the battlefield, and then the 101 Motor Rifle Division advances in Sumy. They're advancing in Sumy, and they're devastating Sumy. It's continuing, it's unending. Russian drone bird eye view as the closing on Ukrainian oil depot. Significant damage confirmed by the Ministry of Defense. This year, it's what the Russians are now doing. They're destroying, in an equal measure, the Ukrainian oil infrastructure, because the Ukrainians have been very effective in devastating oil infrastructure. Putin's response to Zelensky's attack on Russia's oil refineries is to target as many gas stations as possible in the frontline regions of Ukraine. It may seem petty, but halting the fuel supply disrupts Ukraine's logistics. And we can see that. In fact, I even had a video of the Rubicon group showing us some of the gas stations that they've destroyed. So gas stations all over, at last count, over 150 have been destroyed. And this is the reason why Russia ramps up a blistering strike to cripple Ukraine's war logistics. Russia's strike on Ukrainian military industrial facilities will intensify, just as Vladimir Putin instructed. And then Ukraine is already grappling with logistic chaos triggered by the strike, he notes. While some lost productivity capacity will be relocated abroad, the majority of these facilities will remain in Ukrainian soil. So the Ukrainians are suffering from so much disruptions, and but don't tell that to Zelensky. Zelensky believes that they are winning. Everyone can see now that we have taken the we have taken the initiative from the Russians, and we are turning this war to where it came from, in Russian soil and to Russian skies and to Russian shores. Of course, this is difficult, extraordinarily difficult, but it is precisely what is necessary to do. Russians feel what they are doing, and I understand that the war of aggression will always have consequences. So he's actually praising the effort of the Ukrainians, no doubt about it. There's no need to understate it. The Ukrainians are
Саме це необхідно, щоб Росія
The Ukrainians have been very effective. Today, though, he's celebrating them, and then he's celebrating some very successful actions of the Ukrainians. It's an annual Superhumans community gathering. So he's celebrating Ukrainians today. And he also said, I visited the warriors in Odessa. So he was in Odessa. He went to meet some of the injured soldiers in Odessa. So Odessa is one of the territories in the Novorossiya that we are worried the Russians may put a big effort to try and take over. So here again, he says, together with our other branches, Ukraine's defense and security forces, the Ukrainian Navy, that Navy has been very successful. He was talking about how they've kept the Russians pressed in the Azov Sea, the Russians cannot strut about the Black Sea. And that is true by all means. The Russians are very wary of moving around that neighborhood because they are underground submarines, they are underground, they are unmanned drones. So he went to celebrate with them today.
країни разом з іншими складовими сил оборони та безпеки зробили те, що багато
Yes, a lot of the Black Sea fleet of the Russians have actually been dealt a big harm. The Russians are very, very constrained and contained within that region. The Ukrainian Navy, together with other components of the defense security forces, has done what many considered impossible. Russia has lost Black Sea, and starting with the liberation of the Snake Island and continuing with our operations against the Russian fleet, ports, and occupation forces in Crimea, we are proving that the Black Sea and Azov area will certainly not be a place of peace for the Russians. Indeed, that has become the most vulnerable part for the Russians. It is the one place where the Ukrainians are having a lot of successes. Today, they actually went in and attacked Russia with 500 drones. And the Russians are saying that they shot down quite over 500 of them. But one particular weapon system, the one did succeed. I have that here. One of them did succeed, and one of them got to St. Petersburg, and that one created a very big horror for the Russians. He said that last night our long-range sanctions against the Russians over this war reached the targets in St. Petersburg. Ukraine's defense forces struck port oil infrastructure that generates revenue for Russia's war, and were also successful strikes in other regions. So we can see here now a port in a facility was destroyed in St. Petersburg. These are all irritations. It will have no bearing on the military actions that are going on front. And this is one of the things too that has come out of this war, the death numbers. Over the past year, Russia has handed over 20,354 bodies to the Ukrainians, while the Ukraine has returned 627 fallen Russian soldiers. And it shows a big disparity. There's a video here that I just had to show, and this is one that is very telling. These are the satellite images of gigantic expansion of Ukrainian cemeteries that allow all nations with observation satellites to get an idea of the human losses of the NATO-Ukraine war. Over 200 to 300,000 missing. So here is a video of
Before the start of the full-scale invasion, there were 3 rows of buried heroes. But now, our flags, I think they can be seen from space. We have 2 entire blocks of them. Our Alley of Glory is one of the largest in Ukraine. The price is bloody, very bloody. There's simply no words.
Yeah, they have very nice names for them, but really it's a sad thing. And this is why some people, especially some Ukrainians, are now insisting that this war should end. It's taking a big toll. And despite the propaganda that the Russians are dying in large numbers, it really is the Ukrainians that are losing quite a lot. Well, today is a big day of celebration. The Americans are celebrating 250 years of their independence from Great Britain. I doubt if they are really independent from Great Britain. Great Britain has found other means to continue to control America. But today is a day by which the American president made some great speeches. The Americans are having big 4th of July celebrations, and it's going on in so many cities. All the American political leaders are making statements. President Trump too has made his own statements. And it's been a very big day of celebration. And America it considers herself a place of freedom, but we know that over the course of these 250 years, there's quite a lot of accomplishment that has happened. The biggest scientific breakthroughs in this world has been in America. The only one thing that you cannot add that is the eradication of poverty. There's still an unequal society. But when you talk of all the accomplishments of man, and in fact, I always say some of the most biggest accomplishments of all tribes, all societies, every single person, race and identity you will find in America. It's in America you will find that the blacks have gone to space repeatedly. The blacks have produced a president. You don't find that kind of reality in many other countries. In those countries, even if you live in those countries forever, you will not even become a citizen. America has a lot of role that it has played in the world. And President Trump is very happy to tell us about it. Let's watch some of his statements and sound bites from what there are so many fireworks going on, but this is one speech President Trump made that talks about American exceptionalism.
We gather on the eve of one of the most extraordinary days in the history of the world. Tomorrow we mark 250 years of glorious independence and 250 years of majestic American freedom. Nothing like it. In all the chronicles of the ages, never before has any nation celebrated so magnificent a triumph as this one, the one that we are participating in right now. At 250 years, America is the oldest republic on earth. We are the freest people on earth. We have the most righteous and enduring constitution on earth. We are the strongest and most powerful country on earth. And by the grace of God, the United States of America is the most successful, most accomplished, most exceptional nation ever to exist in human history. And it is great to be your...
So, well, that is how he sees it. That's very debatable now because there's another country that is coming up with so much accomplishment, and that's the system of that country is communism. Now, he railed against communism very seriously because now they have some people who are talking about the benefits of socialist way of living. President Trump called communism a mortal threat to American liberty while speaking at Mount Rushmore on Friday, saying there was now a resurgence of communists and it's a menace to the Americans. The Communist Party. So let's listen to some of this statement.
For 100 years, we do that. We're not going to lose an election for 100 years. The Communist Party is made up of illegal immigrants, criminals, and everybody that doesn't want to work. Communism is a loser. It always was, and it is right now. It's a big loser. Look at the people that are promoting it. They are not the people you're going to follow.
So he railed very seriously against communism. Let's get a better read of it.
American identity under a renewed attack a generation after we fought and won the Cold War against the menace of communism, there is now a resurgence of the communist menace in our land, including from newcomers to our country who embrace ideas totally opposed to our way of life and our great success. These are not mere political disagreements like differences over taxes.
Well, it so turns out that the person is railing against is Mamdani. Mamdani has put a new resurgence in the Democratic Party. But obviously, a lot of people now are now seeing the opening up of China due to TikTok and due to the YouTube videos that people see about China, and it's challenging the American system. But no doubt about it, today was a great day that America celebrated. There was fireworks all over the country, and even all the political leaders made speeches. J.D. Vance has made a speech. Marco Rubio has made a speech. It's a very big day about celebrating America's independence. It's too detailed and too plentiful for one to go into details of it too. And as he was railing against the communists, he also said something about the Iranians. He said that he defeated the Iranians and he's giving them only one time for their funeral, 1 week for their funeral. Well, the Iranians had something to say to him too. They also told him that they celebrated the funeral of their president today, and there was a lot of chant of death to America. But
امام شهیدمون لبیک بگوییم به امام شهیدمون که آنچه او به ما آموخت تا پای جان.
So over 20 million people came for the funeral of the Ayatollah. It was well attended. It was well attended, and many people spilled over into many parts of Tehran. Huge crowds everywhere. But this man, who is the son of the late Ayatollah, was not part of it. He was told to stay safe. Mojtaba Khamenei's bid to attend his father's funeral was rejected amidst concerns for his security. The crowd, these are the kind of crowds that we saw. It was really a big one. But this year is just in the particular mosque. On the streets of Tehran, it was even much bigger, much bigger than that. And this is an iconic picture by every means necessary. You can see the huge waves of humanity that came out to pay their last respects to the Ayatollah. It was a very big one. So many countries attended, and Russia, China, Pakistan, India. The list of countries was very large and extensive of people who came to commiserate with the Iranians. The stature of Iran has changed all over the world, and we can see now that they are now very much very differently from how they were a few years. They've come off of isolation. They are very much an integral part of it. A large, befitting farewell. The body of the Ayatollah, late Ayatollah, will be still going around. It will go to Iraq, and then before it will end up in his birthplace. But this man was not invited. Reza Pahlavi, whose father was kicked out by the Iranian Revolution, was not invited. He was not, and he was the one who campaigned very seriously for the war that was brought against the country that ultimately led to the death of the Ayatollah. He was indicted for 9 counts. It says 9 counts: corruption on earth, directing and financing terrorists, collaborating with hostile government, espionage for foreign intelligence, inciting murder and bodily harm, destruction. He was calling for this campaign. And when President Trump made the peace process, he actually went out and said that President Trump had made a mistake. He was hoping that if President Trump was able to get out the government, he will take over. Pahlavi has lost very woefully. And one thing, though, we now find out is that the struggle over the Strait of Hormuz continues, and then the Iranians have said that they will reward those countries that have supported them the most. One particularly is China. Iran announces that potential fees imposed on the Strait of Hormuz will not apply to China and other friendly countries, as they will receive discounts from the benefit. This is a big contention now, and it's the very big contention. As America is dangling a lot of resources and a lot of money to the Iranians are insisting that they're going to hold on to control of the Strait of Hormuz. Anyway, this is where I'll end my video for now. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you have any views regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. What do you think? Where do you think the Russians will end this war? Will it be at Khakiv? Will it be at Odessa? Or will it be in Kiev? Put it in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Until my next video, you have a good day.